Hello,
Hello.
everybody. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Paizo Live, our monthly show where we talk about all things Paizo and bring on our wonderful editorial staff to tell you about what they're working on. I remember the opening script. My name is Alex, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm Paizo's organized play coordinator. Marissa, say hi to the people.
Hi, I'm Marissa Marie. I'm Paizo's web content manager. You don't keep the script just like right next to your screen and read it like
That
oh,
would
I
be like
lost it too.
that would be a smart thing to do, but immediately Rue is gone, and so chaos reigns. Anyway, hi everyone. We're going to talk about some stuff today, but first I'm going to talk to my friend Marissa because Paizo
Hello.
Live is sometimes the only time that I get to talk to my friends. So, Marissa, what have you been playing lately?
Oh my goodness. Well, I am contractually obligated to say that I have been playing Pathfinder and Starfinder. No,
Okay, but
actually I do
besides that,
actually I do have a regularly ongoing Kingmaker game. I have the most useless character ever. I love her very much. Not Pathfinder, Starfinder, RPG in general. I am having fun with my little farms on Coral Island, the video game, as well as this week's board game we've been playing is this really cool game called Spirit Island, where it is a co-op game where you and your friends play spirits who defend your island and its inhabitants from colonization. What have you been playing this week, Alex?
well, let's see. In the Pathfinder realm, which we are contractually obligated to discuss, last week I turned a 5 versus 1 lich fight in a certain AP into a 3 versus 3 fight
Oh
when
no.
due to the combination of an evil mirror duplicate and a dominate spell. So sorry to my players, but also no regrets. Let's
He's
see.
not sorry.
I couldn't be less sorry, truly. Make better choices. Let's see. On the non-Pathfinder side, last month we all mocked me for my Balatro failures, and I decided we need to mock me for different failures this month. Um, so I decided I had some time on my hands, and I had like bounced off of Disco Elysium really hard the first time I tried to play it because I was like, that's really involved and it's way more than I thought it was. So I was like, I'll come back to this later. I had time this week, so I was like, I'll go for it. I'll try it again. I played for about an hour. I got out of the hotel. I met Kim Kitsuragi, and then a child mocked me so hard that I quit my job and lost the game. Which is great, and I have just decided is the actual canonical ending to Disco Elysium. So sorry that I've spoiled it for all of you, but that's the canon ending: is that you just get mocked by a child.
Come just
Uh,
join me in farming simulators. It's fine. We'll have a fun time.
Clearly, I'm way more cut out for that than like anything else. So, anyway, mock me for my failures. I'll find a different video game to be bad at for you all next month.
But you know, it's not video games that we actually should be talking about and not just gossiping about our non-games.
What? Tell me, Marissa.
What? What's the reason we're all here today other
Oh,
than
okay.
riffing off of each other until we fill in the audience of Paizo Live?
All right, fine.
Um
We'll discuss actual Paizo Live things. Before we talk about what we're actually going to talk about, though, there is one other thing that I want to talk about. We are not going to talk about Battlecry today. Sorry, besties. We know you want to hear about that. There'll be plenty more coming soon. But if you did not see, we had an excellent article in Polygon earlier this week that hopefully Maya will put in the chat right about now, where we revealed the cover for Battlecry. We talked about a bunch of cool new stuff coming in there, including the new classes as well as the Jotunblood ancestry. I hope that I was right about which one it was, and I haven't just spoiled something else. So go check that out if you want news about Battlecry. It's super cool. The cover is awesome. I love it so much. Marissa, what are we actually talking about with
okay.
our wonderful editorial staff today?
The things we're actually talking about this week are one that is near and dear to my heart, the NPC Core. I helped work on it as well. I don't even get to interview Logan about it. You get to interview Logan about that one.
I'm unbiased. That's why.
We're also going to be talking about Lost Omens Rival Academies because you know we decided we needed more schools, and then we are also going to be talking about an upcoming hardcover adventure, Claws of the Tyrant.
Yes, all very exciting, and we will get started with that in just a moment. But at the end of the show, we will also, as always, have a Q&A segment where we will take your questions from chat and interrogate our wonderful editorial staff with them, or I guess each other. So don't forget to leave questions in the chat. We will compile them and then use some of them at the end.
All
So yeah,
right,
do
our
that.
edit just in. I heard that I think our editorial staff are ready to crash our Paizo Live and actually talk about the subject they want us to get off the screen.
I guess we got 5 whole minutes, so that's fine. So I will go ahead and transition and talk about NPC Core with Logan Bonner. So
Hi.
magic button time. I'm not in charge of the buttons, my guys. We've done it. Oh, wow, the colors changed. I wasn't expecting that. Hello, wonderful transition, seamless, fantastic. Welcome to the show, Logan. Lovely to have you again.
Thank you, Alex.
Would you please introduce yourself to the people for those who don't know you?
Hello, people. I'm Logan Bonner. I'm the Pathfinder lead designer, so I kind of run Overwatch on the rules of the game and a lot of the products that come through the rulebook line.
Fantastic. And we've invited you here today, of course, to talk about NPC Core, our next rulebook release. But once again, I don't want to talk about that. I want to know what you've been playing lately, Logan. Tell me of your games.
So I have 2 ongoing RPG groups. One of them is playing Dragonbane right now. We've been playing that for quite a while. And the other is helping my friend Rodney Thompson playtest Neon City Outlaws, a cyberpunk heist game based on his game Dusk City Outlaws. So we've been, doing some shenanigans in cyberspace and, horrible meat space dystopia. I've also been playing a lot of the Shipwreck Arcana, which is one of my favorite kind of little short games, kind of a number-based mathematical guessing game. I played a little bit of Dragon Age Veilguard last night after not having played it for like a couple months. So it was like, how buttons work?
How do game work?
Yeah. Where was I again? There's a big thing that says I should go here, so I guess I'm doing that.
Fantastic. That sounds like quite a lot of gaming. I love that for you. And I love the concept of cyberpunk heists because those are 2 of my favorite things.
Well, I've got a game for you.
Oh, well, tell me more. But not now. Perhaps later, offline.
Yeah.
So, yes, we brought you here to talk about NPC Core. Logan, what is NPC Core? Tell the people.
Okay, hello the people. So NPC Core is kind of a companion piece to the Monster Core books, where you have a whole bunch of not so monstrous people. It varies from everything from soldiers to devotees of religions. It kind of covers a whole bunch of different categories and gives you kind of guards and chefs and just kind of everybody you want to sprinkle into your game whenever you need stat blocks or ideas that are not like straight up monsters and creatures in the in the wilderness and the plains and all that. So almost all of the stat blocks in this book are humans as kind of a starting point. And then there are kind of sections for different ancestries that go into some of them, but it's kind of built to populate all those NPCs that you need for your game. Apart from like your specially crafted hand-built NPCs for your major villains and characters and stuff like that.
Of course. You can see there on the screen NPC Core releases in 3 different cover flavors, all of which have the same insides. Of course, we have our standard hardcover there, our sketch cover with the beautiful sketch art from Wayne Reynolds, and then our special edition leatherette there with the green leather.
Yeah, this is kind of like the in first edition we had the codexes that Wayne really got to do just a whole bunch of little characters across the cover, and this is kind of in a similar style. So there's a whole bunch of fun little details on there for people to get it really up close to your face and find all the little characters depicted.
Yeah, absolutely. Get the magnifying glass out and look for all the Easter eggs there. So this is kind of, I think, an unusual style of book. It's not quite like a traditional rule book. It's also not quite a bestiary in that sort of sense. How does outlining and concepting a project like this differ from kind of the other rule books in the line? How do you make decisions on what kind of NPCs to include in a book like this?
Kind of the main driver is just kind of like, what do you need on the fly all the time? So the most obvious ones being like guards and thieves and that sort of thing, like burglars and stuff. And we had some of those in the game mastery guide earlier in the edition. And so when I was kind of working on filling this out, it was kind of seeing like who else fits in these categories, what other types of healers would be really cool in here, and also those are all like fairly low level, so we want to get a few more in kind of the higher level range too, while still making it as usable as we can make it. The main thing that was different here was that when you're doing a monster book, it's kind of like it's really cool. This weird creature with 7 eyes and 2 meat cleavers in each of its 17 hands, right? The monsters are kind of just selling themselves and being really cool. For this one of the things that was a big goal of ours was to make sure there was some fun stuff to incorporate in your game, because a lot of the stat blocks were going to be a little bit more like, oh, you kind of just know what this is. You know what a guard is going to be like and what they're going to act like. You've got a pretty good idea what elf hunters are going to act like. So one of the things we put in here were some like cool kind of fun stuff sections to just kind of like grab character names or quirks for your NPCs and kind of use those in the middle of the game, or like special spells and gear that fit those NPCs and that you might put on an NPC and then the PCs can find it after the fight. So a bunch of stuff that'll just like helpfully inspire the GM and give them more tools to use to put on more paints for their palette and that sort of thing to make all these NPCs really sing at their game table. And there you can see the from the courtiers section, you can see the envoy. There's a whole bunch of really cool new art in this book, and that's one of my favorite pieces in there.
The art in this book is, I mean, the art in all of our books is incredible, but I love just all the different walks of life you get in this.
And this is definitely the kind of book where like having really cool art for these NPCs can make it really exciting to use them. You could be like, look at this cool person. Players, look. Yeah. You can also see a whole bunch of this of the art from the book on the NPC Core Valentines. Alex, do you want to talk a little bit about where people can find those?
So on the Paizo blog this week, we released some lovely Valentines, as Valentine's Day is coming up next week. And so the marketing team got together in a Zoom call and for 90 minutes made the worst puns and pickup lines and jokes we could possibly think of, and then we put some of them on Valentine's, and I apologize for nothing that I did in that time. It was a delightful time. You can find those on the Paizo blog. Perhaps someone will dig up the link and post it in the chat, but it's great, and I apologize for nothing.
Yeah. Another of the really cool pieces is the Infernal Registrar, because there were some characters that were on Wayne's cover where we were like, well, if we've got this NPC in the book, why don't we use that art as inspiration for the artist doing the internal art? So this is one of them who's kind of like a lawyer who works with devils and hell. So,
I'm sure that'll be super useful in the year to come.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things that we also wanted to do with the book was we have kind of those like, oh, yeah, obviously I know that I want a town guard stat block or something. But we also wanted to have, since we were doing like a full book, we had enough room to kind of do some more specific and weird ones and to expand into some categories that we wouldn't have been able to in like a smaller tome. So we have like some martial artists and some other categories that that we really had the freedom to explore here.
Yeah. So are there, I mean, obviously this is a book, chock full of stat blocks, but does it have options for like those kind of characters who, you might still need, but might not be like combat encounters or might not be super great in a fight, anything from like your classic level 0 farmer to, I don't know, like a librarian or something like that who like probably is not going to be a combatant.
Yeah, we definitely have those. One of the things that we kind of expanded on that we'd used a little bit before the remaster, but kind of this post-remaster book we wanted to kind of emphasize a little more with these NPCs is the non-combat level. So a lot of these characters, if it is something like a librarian, they might be a level -1 creature because that's kind of like, oh, in a fight they're not going to do a whole lot, but they have a specialist level that is related to what they do if you're doing a research based encounter and it's more of like using our victory point subsystem or the research subsystem. It gives them an effective level so that if you're challenging them in that way, you kind of know how tough of a challenge they're going to be, what level of party they're appropriate for. So we have some of those for like a prime minister who, you can just punch them in the face, sure, but if they're doing,
but you shouldn't.
If you're going up against each other, in front of a court or a legislative body, it might be a different situation.
Yeah. And also I apologize to the chat for impugning the combat abilities of librarians. I too fear librarians. I understand that they are a significant combat challenge. It was simply the first nerd I could think of, who wasn't me.
There is not a game designer or a organized play manager stat block, unfortunately.
Well,
just ran out of room.
That's good because I shudder to think what that would look like. Oh, gosh. But this does, however, include a lot of the NPCs who sort of first showed up in Game Mastery Guide way back, in 2019-ish, I assume. I wasn't around
Yeah,
for
something like
then,
that.
you know, well before the remasters. How did all of that come about?
This book had kind of a weird journey because we planned an NPC book before we knew we were going to do the remaster, because that was kind of reacting to external circumstances. So we had our big plan, and we had, the book ordered essentially. I'm not sure. It might have even already gotten the writing in by that point. I don't remember the timeline exactly, but then it was like, well, we are pushing this book way down the road. And by the time we were doing that, we were also figuring out how to do GM core. And one of the things that was in there was like, we've got this big section of NPCs, but we have a book coming up that's all NPCs. So we basically said, all right, let's get those all in one place because it just makes sense for them to all be together. So we picked those up and also put them in NPC Core and remastered them and did some updates. So you're gonna kind of get all of it in one spot.
That's great. It's great to have all of that in one spot is really useful. So I can just have one book next to me that I can flip through frantically when my players go off the rails.
This piece of art is one of the new from one of the new categories of NPCs, which are the primalists. You'll see that there are a bunch of categories in this book. It's kind of like that Game Mastery Guide thing. It's arranged by category, and because we were kind of doing a new book, we kind of rearranged some things and made them a little more intuitive, but we also got to add categories. So this is the primalists category, which is kind of like your druids and your kineticists and some of the more nature-themed characters. So this is the pack leader, who gets to have some cool animal friends, a fantasy that I'm sure many of you will enjoy playing out in your games. There's also a lot of, like this character, a lot of NPCs who, like, maybe you fight them or maybe you befriend them. We kind of wanted to include a pretty broad set where, a lot of them serve multiple purposes in your game.
Yeah.
One of the other new categories is engineers, who are kind of the more mechanical themed characters who might have machinery. So this is inspired by the Sterling Dynamo archetype from Guns and Gears.
I see that.
So this is a dynamo who has kind of like clockwork prostheses and has special, abilities related to using those in the stat block, which is, that's definitely one where it's like, because we get to do a deep dive, we bring in some really cool situations like that. Another section is Mavericks, who are kind of a little more of the like cowboys and guns segment of the book. And this is the Gun Witch. This is the Gun Witch, Alex. The Gun Witch.
The Gun Witch.
And that is her gun staff. So if you want to, this is kind of like the most extreme edge, where it's like, okay, all right, I guess we'll let the freelancer do a Gun Witch. This is very exciting. Yeah, but she's having fun. She's casting spells and shooting bullets.
I love that for her.
Yeah.
Well, she'll go very well with the remastered Guns and Gears, which we've just released. You can purchase at your local game store. There we go. Got the plug in. Carry on.
Yeah, nice. Good job, Alex. You did it. Yeah. One of the other categories we dipped back into are troops. So if you liked troops, you'll see some of those in here. This is the phalanx formation. We have a section on soldiers. Or military, which is going to have soldiers and also, drill sergeants and those kinds of characters for your, military campaigns. Is going to, work really well with Battle Cry as well. You can kind of mix and match those. One of the other things we did based on some play testing, these are the Woodland Scouts from the Elves section, which is another troop. Some of the ancestries from Player Core each got a troop. Cool. And as well as some other stat blocks. So there's like a goblin troop and a halfling troop, and here's an elf troop. We also did some play testing with troops and made some changes to the troop rules that we think are going to make them a little easier to play, easier to kind of use at the table, and kind of simplified those down a little bit and made those a little more clear on how you could use them. So you'll see those kind of new rules. Most of your old troops are going to require very little modification to use with the new troop rules. It's mostly like moving them and constructing them on the battlefield is going to be a lot easier.
I see you've elected to release those rules right after I finish running a whole bunch of troops in my Strength of Thousands adventure path. Thank you so much, Logan.
Yeah, this is perfect timing on our part. We always love to get one over on Alex. That's
It's an important part of the development
our
process.
design philosophy on the wall. That's bullet point number 4.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, totally understood. So I want to go back to a point that you touched on a little while ago, and then you started talking about like gun witches and Sterling Dynamos, and that was super cool. But you mentioned players kind of getting attached to particular NPCs, or maybe looking at certain NPCs' art and going, "Hello there." You know,
Yeah.
is there anything in this book, I guess, for that sort of, I don't know, subsystem or like relationship building or things like that?
Yeah, there actually is. In addition to the kind of more stat blocky sections and the the details that go with them, we have a set of additional rules to make using NPCs more engaging and more fun. So I'm going to make you wait for the actual direct answer. So it has things like a bunch of spell lists that you can swap in for your NPCs. If you just like, I want to do a fire mage or I want to do a necromancer, and I don't have exactly that stat block, but you can just drop in the spell list. We have a bunch of those as samples. We have some stuff for animal companions, but we also have a section on relationships and advancing NPCs, and this is for those recurring NPCs who you really want to have back time and again. So you can become, you can have a villains to lovers arc if you want with your NPCs, because it includes all the way up to like bonded, which would be like married or serious relationship, or vindictive, where you've really dropped the ball and they're out for revenge. And this covers romantic relationships, but it also covers any other close relationship. It could be like our party met at the tavern, befriended the tavern owner, and now we're best friends over time. We really get along with them, and kind of how to give tokens and commit insults that improve or ruin your relationship. So we think that's going to be really fun. It's one of those things. It's like you don't necessarily want to use it with every NPC, but for the ones that the players have really latched onto, it's really fun for that.
I love that. I love that. We finally given the people what they demand, and that demand is rules for romancing NPCs and also other relationships. But let's be real, we know what they're going to use it for.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that's like, also a lot of folks are just going to want to role play it, but there are going to be some people who are like, I need a number that says how much this NPC loves me. I need that written down.
I need it quantified, please.
Yes.
I also love that it goes the other direction as well, because I do love the idea of like, a villain who, you keep thwarting and who keeps showing up and just like deepens that relationship in the opposite direction.
Yeah, there's also some really good advice in here on like the relationships decaying over time and like how that works with adventuring, because we didn't want it to be just like, oh, you're away for 2 months saving the world and now your former partner hates you, right? We wanted it to be accepting of the realities of adventures and the adventuring life. And there's also a bunch of really cool stuff on how to role play relationships in a safe way and responsibly. So it's all very thorough and very cool.
I love that. This sounds like just an incredibly useful book, I think, for any GM out there, because it sounds like you've just got a ton of different tools for them that you've given them in this.
Yeah.
Well, that all sounds wonderful. I think we've looked at pretty much all of the art that you have brought.
I think there's one more piece of a
I was
lizard
to ask
folk,
if you wanted to
because
share your live spoiler, but I think it's linked. So
there's a lizard folk because we have an ancestry NPC section for every ancestry that's in Player Core and Player Core 2. And I believe it's 4 pages for any Player Core ancestry and 2 pages for any Player Core 2 ancestry is basically how we broke it out. But that means there's a lizard folk, and I believe if you looked at the Valentines, you saw one of the new Leshies in there, along with some other folks. But the Leshies were especially fun because different kinds of plants, and I don't know if we've shown off the gourd Leshy witch yet, but I think people will enjoy that one a lot.
Oh, that's such a great art. I think we can save that for when people buy the book, but it's so good. I know the one. Just
flip straight to page 202 when you get your book, and you'll see it.
Just trust us. Just trust us. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
So I think the last thing we typically ask is if you've brought any Paizo Live spoilers, any last things about the book that you want to share that might not have been shared yet.
Yeah, I've got a spoiler for you. One of the things that we introduced as far back as bestiary for for Pathfinder 2nd Edition was adjustments that let you really quickly just slap them on a creature and adjust them. So like I said, most of the NPCs in this book are humans. We have a set of adjustments for every ancestry that is depicted in the book. So if you want to turn that prime minister into an elf prime minister or a halfling prime minister, you can do that really quickly. We also have, Joe, a bunch of really fun adjustments throughout the book and other spots. So I wanted to spoil some of those real quickly. We have the Athamaru and Merfolk aquatic ancestries.
Nice.
We have one to make corrupt NPCs. That's in the official section. You can make any of your officials corrupt. There's a gorilla NPC for the military.
Sorry, is gorilla as in like a large monkey, or like gorilla as a gorilla fighter?
Gorilla fighter.
Okay, I thought we were talking.
You're gonna have to release the other one on your own, Alex.
All right, great.
We also have the retired adjustment in the Mavericks, so you can do like the retired sheriff. And Maryssa might have more to say about the union organizer adjustments.
How delightful!
Yeah.
all of my NPCs will now be union organizers. Just slap it on them all. I love that. I think adjustments are super great. They're super versatile, and they'll just, I think, help people out. Super excited for this. NPC Core releases next month, March 5th. You can pre-order on Paizo.com now. And yeah, so Logan, we'll bring you back at the end for our Q&A segment. So if you have any questions about NPC Core or anything else that Logan didn't answer, feel free to drop it in chat and we will grab those for the end of the show. But for now, I think we will both say goodbye. We're going to take a quick ad break here, and then Maryssa will be back to talk about Lost Omens Rival Academies with Landon. So we'll see you all in just a minute.
Survival in a world beset by magic and evil takes more than a lucky roll of the dice. Complete your Pathfinder Core Rulebook collection with Player Core 2, an expansion on character options for the remastered Pathfinder 2nd Edition rule set. Tinker and test out formulas as an alchemist, make keen observations, and get to the heart of the matter as an investigator. Stand strong and ferocious as a barbarian. Take up a holy, or unholy, mantle in service of a deity as a champion. Dance through battle with the grace and bravado of a swashbuckler. Maintain a balance between mind, body, and spirit as a monk. Take hold of the innate magic in your sorceress bloodline. Explore the mysteries of your fate as an oracle. And build even more customized characters with archetypes, ancestries, versatile heritages, and more.
Welcome, friends, to the Greenwood Gala, where all the people of the forest, even talking animals like me, come together to celebrate everything wonderful about nature. We get to know each other, have fun, and respectfully share ideas. Here in the Verdurin Forest, the Treaty of the Wildwood protects nature. It lets our neighbors harvest a few trees, conserve the rest, and all in all keeps everyone peaceful, warm, and happy. This is a pleasant place, full of wonder, where everyone gets along. Wait, what's that? Well, I mean, the treaty keeps the arboreals happy, so they would never... Oh, nope, they look angry. Surely the Fae of the forest understand that... Oh, this isn't good. I can't remember the last time that... Oh no! Everyone needs to hold up for a minute. We can talk this through! Wait, no, not like that! Okay, the Verdurin Forest is always fun and cheery, but this is getting out of control. Get some negotiators, meet with the lumberjacks and druids, smile a bunch. No, this is not how we're supposed to negotiate! This shouldn't be happening. We're supposed to be gathering, sharing, having fun. And now, everyone's tearing apart the treaty. Maybe we need some new faces. some fresh ideas. Someone who's gonna make things right. Hey, maybe some Wardens of Wildwood.
Well, hello. Welcome to part 2 of Paizo Live, where we are going to talk about rival academies. Written down, we have the icebreaker of what games we've been playing. But Landon, I see somebody in the background.
Yes, these are my cats, Balder and Nana. This is Balder, and this is Nana, and they love each other very much once they've sorted out who gets to sleep on the worms.
So who is currently sleeping on the worms? I can't tell from here.
Oh, they're actually both sharing the worms at this point. There will usually be a bit of a tussle at, about noon, after which either I will end up with either one of them, or when I'm very lucky, as I am today, both of them. So.
Oh my goodness, they're so well behaved, specifically because they know you're going to be on a live stream.
Right.
Oh, I guess he doesn't want to be on a live stream.
Oh.
I have my grumpy boy who I just woke up from a nap as well, so I will let Bandit go back down for his nap. He is much less enthused than the cats. All right, so actually getting to the actual icebreaker, what games have you been playing?
Well, I actually, very appropriate for this segment, I do have a weekly Pathfinder game that I GM that is set in Lepidstadt, at the University of Lepidstadt. It's sort of like a weekly, like very much like Monster of the Week, like whoever shows up solves the mystery and fights the monster that week. So
that's perfect for like a drop-in, drop-out game.
Yeah, that's really like I do love the big AP arcs, but when life starts getting in the way a little bit, it's just like, yeah, just get all the friends in a Discord, and whoever wants to show up shows up and fight some monsters.
Oh, they knew that their time has come to an end. They got introduced.
Babies.
Now it's time to go.
Oh, you cannot probably hear the cute sneezes, but there were cute sneezes as well.
All right. Well, trying to keep us on track and not just fawning over cats. Let's get back to Lepidstadt. And Lepidstadt, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, right?
Lepidstadt, yeah.
Lepidstadt, got it. That is one of the schools that's going to show up in the book that we're talking about, which is Lost Omens Rival Academies. If we want to switch over to showing the cover now, Maya, hit the magic button. Yes. Oh my goodness, it looks amazing.
Yeah, you can see a bit of the some of the students from the University of Lepidstadt talking to some of the students from the Megambia, having some interesting conversations about what exactly is in the Lepidstadt exhibit, which can be seen on the left, sort of this mysterious box festooned with crackling coils of, occult energy that may or may not be haunted or full of brains.
Definitely won't come to bite us back in the butt at any point.
Yeah, definitely in no way a threat to anyone who's attending the convocation. Or any sort of, morally questionable. No, we're good.
It's fine. Okay, but we can't just talk about Lepidstadt. Let's take a step back and look at the forest through all the trees and give us like a bigger picture of what exactly Lost Omens Rival Academies is going to be about.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rival Academies is, as the name implies, it's a book about schools. There are 6 that are covered in a lot of depth through the lens of what's called the 6 schools convocation. They're sort of trying to come together to really exchange information and make sure, more than anything else, that it doesn't get lost. And the different schools have different relationships, I guess, really, with that question. We can get into a little bit more later, but from a player perspective, like if you're just picking up this book, what you're going to see is a lot of descriptions of those schools that are actually completely in character. So it's not like, you'll flip to school and be like, the headmaster of this school is secretly a vampire. and nobody knows this. And it's like that's the first paragraph. So it's very much just gets you into it as the experience from the perspective of a student or a professor at that school. And then obviously you'll have some fun options. The Megambia gets a new wizard school. It, as you might expect, we do have a fair number of wizard schools in there. It's sort of almost required for the theme. But they also get into some of their storytelling magic, how they can tell the tales of the Mwangi Expanse and actually bring them to life as spells, essentially. So yeah, you get a little bit of explanation so you can really drop into that in character. And if you want to read the whole book, you're also not finding out any, anything that the other schools feel are terrible dark secrets. There are certainly some disagreements on what would be a terrible dark secret, but yeah, it's a very very sort of spoiler-free kind of approach to things, and that extends to the intro, which the convocation itself is set in Neurosian, which is way up north next to the Sarkoris Scar, which you may recognize from Wrath of the Righteous. Used to be the World Wound, used to be overrun by an effectively infinite number of demons, and is now overrun by a finite number of demons, which is a huge upgrade. And so, yeah, you get a lot of information about Horus and Mendev, still sort of in that, like, you can just read it as a player or as a GM and actually just know the information that your character would know.
Okay, so you mentioned that there's like 6 main schools. It sounds like there's more than 6 schools total, but there's 6 main schools.
Yes.
We've heard of Lepidstadt. What others can we name?
So,
or is that spoilers?
No, that's not spoilers. So I can go through the whole crew here. We've got the Academy of the Reclamation. They are sort of the hosts of this whole thing. They are a school that is really trying to bring back together the scattered information, scattered lore and people, culture of Sarkoris. Very strong divine traditions they had with their what are called god callers, their summoners, but also getting into just all of the little aspects of their culture, because their country was essentially for 100 years completely uninhabitable, and only recently, since the events of Wrath of the Righteous, with the World Wound being sealed, can they actually really start returning and reclaiming, as it were.
Okay, so that's one.
Yeah, we have Kobe Slarney, which I'm just going through these.
Back of an elephant.
Yes, Kobe Slarney is both the name of the academy and also the name of its headmaster, who you can see here. That is Kobe Slarney. They are a school that wanders the first world, the world of the Fae, and they are extremely. I mean, they're Fae. You get into some really weird stuff. We've got when you get into some of their students, there are questions like, is this bird a professor or someone's familiar? Like there's a lot of, and the has one of my favorite sections in the whole book, a little sidebar. It's talking about is from the perspective of one of their professors who has spent some time in the mortal world before. Actually is a nature spirit in the area thousands of years ago, and is trying to tell them, like, okay, like, some very important things you have to know. Like, if you die here, you actually die. Like, you don't just come back.
In the video game, you die in the real world.
Exactly, right? And the time flows linearly here. You cannot just like make the world around you respond to your whims without casting spells. You'll need to actually like do things. So like, get yourself a timepiece. If you're not sure if something will kill you, ask one of the mortal people at the convocation. So they're definitely like the furthest out there school by far. We have the Magambia, who we already mentioned. They are from the Mwangi Expanse. They are the oldest school of magic sort of in the Inner Sea region that we spend a lot of time focusing on. And they've been there for a long time. If you've played the Strength of Thousands adventure path, it's really tied up in that. They are, honestly, they're really cool people. I'm a big fan. But we also have the Monastery of the Unbreaking Waves. And these are, it's one of the houses of perfection. They're actually a group of monks, primarily. They do also practice arts in sort of like the magus type areas as well. Probably have some kineticists floating around because they do have a very strong tie with water. Each of the houses of perfection embraces one of the elements, and the Monastery of the Unbreaking Waves is the water house. But they are basically a group of monks that have learned from Phaedon, the water genies, how to monk it up. So they're very cool. And then the last one of the six is the University of Lepidstadt, and they are very much our going back long before I think either of us were here. They've been very much the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein sort of school, very, very, Gothic architecturally and tonally. There's a great archetype, it's Lepidstadt Surgeon, that both, lets you put people back together and put people back together, and actually take people apart too.
You can't really have one without the other.
Right? Yeah, like you really need to be able to handle the whole cycle. They also have some really interesting gadgets, whether for inventor characters or just players to find, getting into some of the more like occult ends of technology, as they were. But yeah, we've got all of those, and they really take up like a lot of the, like, if you're gonna take a deep dive into one of them, it's gonna probably be one of those schools. We do also have some smaller schools. I shouldn't say smaller, some smaller delegations that are invited from as far away as Tianxia, and just near as like Absalom, basically from all over, and some from other planes like Axis. So we've got a real broad range of schools, but those are more represented as like, here's the person that is like the person who was invited from this school, and whether they have a plan for how to get demons out of Sarkoris that they think is a really good idea that may not be a great idea, or if they have their own research that they're very excited to share with everyone. It all sorts of goes into that.
Cool. All right, so let's just keep it with the core six then. Can I ask you which one of your schools is the favorite? Are you allowed to show a bias? Do you have to say you love all of the children equally?
I do. I am contractually obligated to say that I love all of my children equally. But
okay, then we'll change the question a bit. Which one of these schools would you want to attend? We won't say it's your favorite, but which one would you want to attend?
I do think I will give a slight nod to the Academy of the Reclamation as my favorite, because you do get a bit more of, just because of their position as sort of the host, you get all of this other information about Sarkoris and Mendev, and you get to see the school from outside perspectives as well, and it ends up creating this really neat texture. But as far as the one that I would actually attend, it'd definitely be Kobe Slarney. I'm a very like head in the clouds kind of person. Just all theory, no application, no
And we can
substance.
do that literally by being on the back of the Headmaster Oliphant.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And if I should have included a picture of their uniform. You can see it on some of the blogs though. But if you look at the shoes of their uniforms, it's very much like those are slippers. Like you don't go outside. Like yeah, you can technically like get off of Kobe Slarney when like he stops at places, but like you walk to class completely indoors. Like you may not leave your room. It's like
Because it sounds like a great school for all of us work from home people.
yeah.
But with this reclamation, I've heard that not just schools are invited. I heard that there are also some rune lords that were invited. So how did that turn out?
That is kind of an interesting bit of what's going on there. So one of the schools that was invited, that everyone was really hoping would come, the Hedron Spires, which is a school that is sort of new in the canon, but is in New Thassalon, under the reign of Sorshan, the former Rune Lord of Lust, and they are learning the magic of the seven sins, the seven runes, and so they were invited, and they did eventually show up. They had their introduction, like the others, is very much talking to one of their students, who just does not seem to be entirely clued into the fact that this is not a party, and showing up fashionably late is something that you do in the terms of like hours rather than like weeks, right?
But a wizard's never late. I've been told wizards are never late, and these are magical schools.
It's true, and these are definitely wizards. The Rune Lords are one of our big sort of tentpole wizarding organizations, and it's one of the questions that really has been tricky with the remaster. There's been a lot of, for the most part, a lot of the things that had to change with the remaster didn't really affect the setting very much. Like, as a developer, sort of on the Lost Omens line, it's like, okay, like if something's holy, if something's unholy, whatever. But the Rune Lords were really closely integrated into some pre-remaster stuff. So we got to really go in there and not only rewire it so that it works properly with remaster rules, and they did definitely need that, but also really make them into something closer to what they were always kind of meant to be. Before, they were sort of riding on top of the old schools of magic with transmutation and enchantments and so forth. But there were a lot of things like, if you're playing Rune Lord of Sloth, you don't have sleep as one of your spells. Like, that just seems not quite right. And there were a lot of little things like that we got to go in and change, sort of get sorted. But mechanically, I think people are honestly gonna really like the remastered Rune Lord. We one of the things with the Rune Lords is that rather than staves, they always use various pole arms and the like. Gives them a really cool look. And in before the remaster, they definitely could use them, absolutely, but there was never really like much there, and so there's a lot more now with them like integrating their like staves into their weapons, and actually using the weapons to assist them in casting spells and things like this, along with using their personal runes to bind powerful magic into them. So mechanically, they've got a lot more going on, both using that directly, but also using those polearms as staffs, which was one of those things where it's like one of the coolest things about it was locked behind like a 10th level feat, where you could take your, if you're preparing a staff, you could just fuse it with your polearm, so you could have both of them always at the same time.
Nice.
And it's like, okay, that's a really cool thing. Like, let's just sneak that in there at level 1. You take the class archetype at level 1, that you just get that in there.
And here I was thinking it was just, oh, they have their pole arms and stuff, because when you run out of magic, you just whack things.
Yeah, I
You're
mean,
just a martial class now.
yeah, I mean, and they're not. I'm not going to say that they're fully martial by any means, but they are definitely capable of doing a little bit of stabbing when the situation requires it, and also, using their polearm to like cut people as they're casting spells, or sort of channel their sin into people to make their spells more effective. And one of the things that is also kind of interesting is the Rune Lords always had this concept of each sin is opposed to 2 others that are barred to them. And instead of this very loosey-goosey sort of arrangement based on how the schools just played out from older sources, it becomes a question of like, like wrath is opposed to these sins. Like, what is their real anathema there? Like, what do they not do? So it's become a little clearer in a lot of ways what does and doesn't work for each of the sins, for each of the Rune Lords. But yeah, there's actually a lot going on there. All sorts of new focus spells for them, a bunch of new high-level spells to sort of fill out their spell lists. The Rune Lords eat well, I think, in Rival Academies.
All right. Let's bring it back to the academies in general, because Rune Lords are really, really cool, but we do have to go back to the other schools. Going to school stunk growing up. I think all of us had to be dragged out of bed and go to school. So there's got to be some opportunities. There's got to be a reason to want to go to school. So what sort of opportunities, and I guess challenges, because we have to make school challenging and educational, and you have to learn something, I guess. But like, what can players really look forward to by playing with these schools and playing as students of these schools?
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways to approach it. One of them is very much just like, these schools can be part of a character's backstory in some other campaign, right? Like, you just are playing a character that happens to be from. I skipped a school in our original conversation. I skipped Kitharodian because I'm a bad friend.
I was even counting on my fingers, and I just let that go.
Yeah. So let's say you're a student from Kitharodian, which is a school from Teldor that specializes in really sort of their like historical plays. If you think very much like the histories of Shakespeare. So you're playing the Teldane equivalent of Richard III or whomever, and channeling the bardic power that has built up in that role. Also, they train spies, although technically no one's supposed to know that, but everyone kind of knows that.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
I don't know where you heard that rumor.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. They don't train spies. The Megambia has spies. But the so yeah, you might just be a character that went to Kitharodian. You're a bard or an inventor that works with stagecraft largely, or what have you. You have some character options from that, but there is also definitely the opportunity to use it as like a broader framework for a campaign, sort of like what I do weekly, but on an even possibly broader scale, because you're talking about a bunch of different schools. And there is a section at the back primarily for GMs, but again, there's actually nothing super spoily back there. It's just advice and how to use systems and stuff. And that gets into what do you get out of what do you get out of going to school?
What is
The
your
answer-
degree?
what is your degree? What is your thesis if you're a wizard? But that gets into one of the options that's presented in there is how to use free archetype to reward people for that, and really how you can integrate that with things like either the reputation system from GM Core or the connections actually that Logan was talking about from NPC Core to really, I've formed a really close connection with this character from another school. Like I'm starting to get like some tutoring from them, or that adds to my options for free archetype, that sort of thing. Also, just a lot of good advice, hopefully, about running, uh, whether it's romances or all of the tension between academic institutions, because
Now I
those can
gotta
all.
Oops, sorry. I said,
Oh,
well, now I have to know if there's like an exchange student fee so you can get another archetype.
Well, the most of that is really pretty open. I mean, it all is all just uncommon feats. But yeah, definitely if you're getting into uh, getting into all the relationships, and like you will start to pile up all sort of delightful options. What was I thinking about though? It's okay. I just distracted by cat. So, but the flip side of that. Oh, right. So there's all of this like relationships and learning and making sure that knowledge is maintained and like exhibits don't blow up, and all of these things that are fun and are like kind of cozy in some ways. Although I think any of us that have been in academics, particularly higher academics, know this can be incredibly high stakes to the people involved. But one of the things that I really love about it, where it's placed, is you are right next to the Sarkoris scar. Like if there's ever a question of like, God, what do we do this week? Right? It's like there are a lot of demons over there, like a lot of demons. So like you can just go kill demons and like reclaim some territory, rediscover some information that's been lost from Sarkorian culture.
I feel like this is both a field trip and detention at the same time.
Yeah, it's got a bit of Miss Frizzle there. It's like, wait, we're going where? There are how many demons? Like
We have to go take care of demons again.
So yeah, I feel like there's a nice structure there back and forth if you do want to run a full campaign at the convocation. But also, yeah, if you want to just have, your Lepidstadt surgeon, they're just people wandering around. Like, absolutely drop that into your next game as your next PC.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am once again contractually obligated for me and for the audience to ask you if there's any extra spoilers you're willing to spill for us.
Let me see. I feel like I should drop a couple just because we're getting really close to release. It drops on March 5th, so people are going to be seeing this really soon. One thing that I will say is that the Unbreaking Waves do have a whole section of monk feats. A lot of fun stuff there. A lot of ways to use water creatively as a monk. A pair that I particularly like, using a geyser to pull someone up like into your hand to grab them, and then a separate one to just send them crashing back down. To really just just seems very visceral to me. I love the design of that.
It feels very much like a finishing move.
Yes, and I feel like monks really like should feel like that a lot of the time. Just really get that physicality. The other one that I did that did really hit me while I was rereading things was one of the Rune Lord spells from their one of the lust spells called Love's Sacrifice, which is a spell for when you're about to be dropped by some damage, and you just pick someone, and assuming they failed their save, they are now like enamored with you and like throw themselves into the way, like to sacrifice themselves so that instead of you. So it's just like, oh wow, who is this person that was clearly built up this important relationship with you that sacrificed yourself? It's like I have no idea. Like,
just some guy. That's Jeff.
Yeah,
Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, it's like your sacrifice is appreciated, Jeff.
Look, as long as it's not Boblin the Goblin, I've already seen the chat been very upset that Boblin the Goblin is not our star NPC. So it can be Jeff. It's fine. All right. Thank you so much for going into the 6 schools, even if we forgot one for a little bit. I think that is all the time we have for now. So we're going to take one more quick break before we get back with Alex and Bill to talk about Claws of the Tyrant. Thank you so much for chatting with us, Landon. That comes out on March 5th.
Yep, coming up very soon. So hope that you enjoy taking a look.
Awesome. Take us away, Maya.
At the dawn of time, the gods united in a desperate battle to save the universe when the rough beast Rovagug aspired to devour planet after planet. In the end, he was not destroyed, only imprisoned in the heart of the planet Galarian. Since then, gods have risen and fallen, but all agree that the rough beast must never escape. Now, Gorum, god of war, has been slain, and the remains of his divine body rain down upon the face of the world. Where his blood and shattered armor land, mythic power takes root and war spreads. For Kira, Maryssa, Ezran, and Amiri, 4 veteran adventurers seeking a lost relic of the sun god Sarenrae and answers to an unexpected assassination attempt, this cataclysm will set them on a desperate task, not only to understand and grapple with their newfound mythic powers, but to prevent the escape of the rough beast himself. Mysterious and sinister forces plot to ensure Rovagug's escape, and the heroes will have no easy time stopping their evil plans. With their burgeoning mythic power, the gift of one of Galarian's surviving deities, and the aid of newfound allies, will 4 mortals be able to stand before a god? Embark upon an epic tale of high adventure in the world of the best-selling Pathfinder role-playing game, In God's Reign by Leanne Merciel, coming soon to a bookseller near you. Find out more on Paizo.com or with the Prelude electronic books, The God's Reign Prophecies and Before the God's Reign. The fate of the world depends on it.
In the nation of Shenmin, spirits and monsters stalk the depths of Spectre Wood, and ghost towns outnumber those inhabited by living souls. But this was not always the case. Over 100 years ago, the Age of Lost Omens began in Tian Sha with the collapse of the mighty Lunghua Empire, an event that left the small towns of Shenmin isolated and forced their citizens to become self-sufficient or fall to ruin. Willow Shore was one such town. Founded to support the construction of a remote mountain monastery, Willow Shore soon transitioned over to a lumber town, and like so many others, it was forced to fend for itself in the years after the Empire's fall. Not 2 years later, the records speak of a mysterious curse that fell upon the town, and while details of what took place have been lost to time, the events of Willow Shore's Season of Ghosts will now be told. The Season of Ghosts begins during the first days of summer, And is a time when the unquiet spirits of Specterwood grew particularly restless. The townsfolk of Willowshore celebrate this with a night of feasting on the last day of spring, but when a group of heroes wakes the day after, they find their hometown under siege. Fog shrouds the town, and the night sky shimmers under the light of a crimson moon, and monsters now stalk freely through the town's streets. While defending the monstrous invaders and lighting the town's protective eternal lantern could restore Willowshore to safety, these invaders and strange manifestations are only the beginning, as walls of ghostly shapes rise in the surrounding woods. The town of Willowshore has become cursed, and its people must band together if they are to survive the coming year and the horrific monsters they will face. Can the town's newest heroes save their homes, family, and themselves? Or will the season of ghosts mean the end for them all?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Paizo Live, our monthly show where we bring on our editorial staff to talk about what's coming up soon in the Paizo universe. We are joined here in our third segment by Bill Fischer. Bill, would you like to introduce yourself to the people?
Yeah, I'm Bill Fischer, and I'm a developer here on the narrative team at Paizo, and one of the people that worked on our newest hardcover adventure compilation called Claws of the Tyrant.
Yes, fantastic to have you on the show today. Before we talk about Claws of the Tyrant, I will ask you our traditional question. What have you been playing lately, Bill?
Well, my home group and I have decided to take a bit of a break from playing Pathfinder, and we are trying out Mouse Ritter, which is like a rules light fantasy game, kind of. It's basically just like your typical dungeon crawling treasure collecting game, but the twist is that you are all mice. So instead of fighting dragons and giants, you're fighting centipedes and birds and things like that. So sort of a Redwall.
I was just going to say,
Redwall
sounds very Redwall, yes.
Yep. Yeah, so we're having a lot of fun with that.
That's awesome. Sounds delightful, and there's a clause transition somewhere in there, but I can't find it, so we'll just get right into it. So yes, you're here today to talk about Claws of the Tyrant, an upcoming adventure compilation. Bill, we had some people in the chat go, Claws of the Tyrant, what is that? So what is Claws of the Tyrant?
So Claws of the Tyrant is a adventure anthology. It has 3 separate adventures that are all set in the Gravelands, which is formerly known as Lastwall before the Whispering Tyrant escaped from his prison and turned Lastwall into a undead hellscape. And so you'll be fighting a lot of undead, but specifically all 3 adventures are about Arasni, who is the goddess of endurance and dignity and surviving even through hopeless situations. And so if you're not following along at home, Arasni she started out as a mortal in Arcadia. She died and became...
Spoilers.
Well,
it was 1,000 years ago.
Many thousands of years ago. She became a herald of Eridan. She died again at the hands of the Whispering Tyrant. Her body was stolen, and she was reanimated as a lich, and she ruled over Geb for 1,000 years. Then she escaped. Then she died again, again at the hands of the Whispering Tyrant. But this time, by dying, she was able to escape lichdom and become a full-fledged god. So all these 3 adventures sort of continue her story along and set her up cement her place as one of the core 20 deities in Golarion.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say she was, of course, on the cover of Lost Omens Divine Mysteries, which released last fall, and she's now as you say, one of the core 20 stepping up for Gorham, who has also had a rough go of it lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you said this is a compilation of 3 adventures. Give me like the top line pitch for each adventure. Like what's each adventure about?
So the first adventure is a adventure for first and second level characters. So you'll be third level by the time you're done. It's called Graveland Survivors by Alexander Agunas. And then the second adventure is called Ashes for Ozum by Aaron Roberts. And that is, no, yes. And by Aaron Roberts. And that is a short 7th level adventure. And that is a bit of a twist where you play evil characters, or at least morally ambiguous enough to take a job from Seldig Bedless, who is a grave knight that we last saw in Bloodlords. And then the final adventure is A Blood and Faith by Rigby Bendel. And that is a high-level adventure where for levels 18 to 20. And that is
That's very high level.
Yes, very high level. So, and where you're going up against Seldig Bedless himself, who has decided that he's noticed that the fate of his story and Erasni's story and Iomede's story all sort of intertwine in a weird, strange, fate-heavy way. And he thinks to himself, well, if just a few things had gone differently, if one thing had changed here and one thing had changed there, Erasni's fate might have been different, and Iomede's fate might have been different, and things might have been different for myself. So I am going to mess with fate a little bit and see what happens.
Intriguing. So I take it, with these adventures being what they are at those levels, and also I guess if you're playing evil characters in one adventure, probably not something where you're building one character to run through all 3 of them.
Yes, so that is the interesting thing about this anthology, is that while they are thematically linked and they tell the same story, it's not like an AP where you are playing one set of characters throughout the entire adventure path. These are designed to be 3 different sets of characters, and it is a new way of telling a story. Like you can certainly tell a story for the Zero to Hero or the event, from there and back again sort of story, the hero's journey. But that's not the only way that you can tell a story. And so this is more of a pulp fiction sort of way of telling a story, where it's one story, but you're seeing it from different directions.
Yeah. I was flipping through it earlier, and I noticed, without saying too much, that there are certain places where it's like, oh, I see how this NPC from this first adventure might show up in this later adventure, or how the threads are sort of tying to each other, and it's very interesting, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, that was one of the funnest things about doing it, was finding those ways where, like, oh yes, this NPC from the first level adventure shows up again at the end, and you can even meet your own characters from different directions. So, and it's also interesting because it sort of thematically mirrors Erasni herself, right? Because to some people she is a hero, to some people she is someone you better be careful around, and to the people of Geb, she was not a nice person. But so she herself is sort of fragmented, and she's trying to figure out, okay, I'm a god now. What do I do? How am I going to proceed? So
yeah. So it sounds like this is an adventure that's really kind of steeped in a lot of the lore in Pathfinder and Galarian, which is obviously going to excite a lot of people. If you're like a new player who's coming in and you're sort of eyeing this as maybe the first thing you want to run for your group, what sort of things do you think will excite new players or intrigue new players who want to sort of experience this?
Well, the first adventure, the low level adventure, is really a great introductory adventure. the premise is that you play a group of survivors who have basically been sheltering in place ever since tar-baphon invaded Last Wall. And so when his forces came through your town, you took refuge in a crypt. And you've been hanging out inside this crypt, except for brief forays to the surface, for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
And so...
You've been watching Silo lately, haven't you?
Yeah, right, exactly. And so until something happens where it's like, we can't be here anymore, we are going to die in here if we don't make our final last chance at getting out of the Gravelands and escaping. So you're the Graveland survivor. So it's a good first experience, low level adventure, because anybody could be down there in that crypt, right? Like if you just happen to be there the night where this all went down, you're together. And so you have a great reason for being together and working together. You've had 6 years to get to know each other. And it's also, so it's sort of a survival horror type of adventure, but we also knew that as fun as killing hordes of zombies is, that's not really what makes a great zombie story, right? Like what really makes it great is the people that you are trying to survive with. Like maybe I don't like you, but yeah, at least you're not trying to eat my brain, so we have to work together here. Yep. So we really made a point to have a lot of interesting NPCs also in the crypt with you, and like you have to learn how to work together to escape. And then once the adventure begins, you have to start making some hard decisions about, okay, are we going to try to gather supplies and evade the zombies, or are we just going to make a run for it? We don't have enough food, so who's not going to eat tonight? That sort of thing. So it's a great introduction to like how RPGs work. Like there's combat, there's exploration, there's role playing. So
yeah, awesome. So I guess this is maybe a strange question because of kind of the nature of the anthology, but one of the things I wanted to ask you about was if you were going to build a character to play, I guess, in one of these adventures, what would you possibly consider playing that might be relevant thematically or mechanically, or just a fun thing to play through these adventures, sort of knowing how it is that they go?
Well, we talked about how in the second adventure, Ashes for Ozum, you are playing an evil character, and so you are seeing this story from the other side, and you've been hired to there's the cover. So you have been recruited by Seldig Bedless to recover an artifact that he needs for to complete this ritual that he is doing. So theoretically, you don't need to be an evil character, but you at least need to be willing to work with Seldig. So this is your chance. Like if you've been waiting for a chance to play a skeleton or a ghost or a necromancer or a cackling villain, this is your chance to do it. So that would be the most exciting thing. So we recommend go look at the Book of the Dead and see what sparks your interest, because now is the time to play an undead character or what have you. So
I love that. And so can we expect that in the other two adventures where you're not playing those, that you're going to be perhaps encountering a fair amount of undead enemies that you might want to be prepared for?
Yeah, I mean, this is the Gravelands, so you are going to be fighting a lot of undead. So if you are interested in this is also your chance to create a character that is the undead slayer, and there's plenty of options in Book of the Dead for that as well. So
So on top of Book of the Dead, I know that oftentimes our adventures kind of come with thematic or otherwise relevant player options. What kind of player options can we expect to see, perhaps in the back matter of Claws of the Tyrant, for players who go through it?
Yeah. So it is an adventure anthology, so it's mainly for GMs, but there's a section with here we have some art of Erasni in front of a stained glass window with tar-baphon behind her there.
That is some really incredible art. I want that stained glass window in my home.
I know that is great, and it recalls the cover of Divine Mysteries too, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, yeah.
Sorry, player options. Yes.
Yes, there's a section on some high-level feats that players can take that are specifically undead fighting, or standing together against unbeatable odds, that sort of thing. And they're specifically designed to build off of some of the archetypes that we saw in the character guide and Knights of Last Wall. So there are Night Reclaimant feats, some high-level ones, Night Vigilant feats, and high-level feats for the Last Wall Sentry archetype from the World Guide.
Yes, yeah. I just want to take a moment and shout out Lost Omens Knights of Last Wall, which we released a couple years ago. Would this perhaps be a relevant book to look at some options from as well?
Yes, that would be a great place to start, especially for the last adventure where it's high level, so you've got a lot of feats to choose. So you can start digging through those books and finding the best feats to be fighting undead and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think a Knight of Last Wall or two would be possibly great choices for that last adventure.
Yeah. Or if you are just allied with the Knights of Last Wall, or it's sort of interesting. Like Erasni is a heroic figure, but she's not necessarily an easy figure. She's not clearly good. She's not big on mercy and not big on forgiveness. And so, but certainly, you do not want Seldig's plan to be successful. So,
no.
so yes, Knights of Last Wall is a great choice. Any sort of high level. This is your chance to be the high level superhero.
Yeah.
And save the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. That's really great. I'm just gonna keep staring at the art there because it's so good. Well, this is all very exciting. Is there anything else about Claws of the Tyrant that we should know about? Oh, we've got another art piece here. You want to talk a little bit about this?
That is the front piece for Graveland Survivors, where we find some two of the iconics hiding from undead. As you can imagine, a big part of that adventure is not fighting undead, but it is running away from undead because there are just too many to fight.
Yes, I imagine. Yeah, first or second level characters could quickly get in over their head if they were not.
Another great reason why that's a great introduction for new players, right? Like, you can't fight everything. You're going to have to make some hard choices, or Was there one more piece of art?
I think so. Who is she? Tell me of her.
So this is a Norn that Seldig recruits. I guess this is a spoiler, but that Seldig recruits for his ritual to alter history. As you can imagine, if you are changing the fates of two goddesses, you need some powerful allies on your side. And so this is a Norn, and Norns aren't usually in the business of changing fate. And so in sort of a dark mirror version of Erasni, Seldig has to take extreme measures to convert a Norn to get on his side to help him with this ritual to rewrite Galarian's history. So
that's all exciting and also terrifying.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if folks have other questions about Claws of the Tyrant, feel free to drop them in chat because we are just about ready for our Q&A segment. I think, Bill, I think that was all that we had planned. So we'll go ahead and
Yep.
take a quick break here, and then we'll come back to our final segment of the show, where we'll interrogate our editorial staff and answer your questions in chat. So please feel free to leave them there, and we will be back here very, very shortly. So don't go anywhere, Bill.
You've made names for yourselves as adventurers over the years, yet now it seems adventure has found you instead. Mysterious and magical hero cards have appeared among your belongings. Where did they come from? And what of the strange powers they grant? The brass dwarf protects you from fire and other harmful effects. The empty throne overwhelms your foes with hopelessness and despair. The paladin defends you from harm and protects you from peril. And the rabbit prince lets you strike at foes with great accuracy. But be careful his advice doesn't shatter your blade. There are so many more cards out there to be found. They've been scattered across the world, so now the hunt is on. With each card you gather, your power grows. Before long, you'll use this power to travel to places beyond reality itself. Yet still, the question remains, where have these cards come from? Who could have created them? And for what purpose? And what of the fiendish armies and monstrous foes who gather against you and seek the cards for themselves? You race against time, gathering these treasures before they're used against you. Will your quest lead you to legendary realms and grant the destiny you deserve? Or are you merely pawns, unwittingly serving mysterious forces who watch from afar, waiting for the right time to pluck your futures away? In the end, what chance do adventurers have against those who would steal fate itself?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Paizo Live, our monthly chat show with our editorial staff. This is our final segment of the show. This is where we corral everyone into one place, and we interrogate them with the questions that our wonderful viewers have placed in the stream chat during the show. So we will do that. If you have other questions that you think of as we interrogate them, please feel free to drop them in stream chat so that we can interrogate them properly. I will go ahead and start us off with the questions that we have, and I like to interrogate the people that I didn't get to talk to during the show, so I'm gonna start with Landon. Hi, how are you, Landon?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm swell. That wasn't the question.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of questions during the segment that I'm kind of going to smush together into one. We have sort of the 6 main schools that you had discussed, but of course I think there are appearances from some other schools, and so people wanted to know sort of some of the other schools that might show up. In particular, we had questions about if Blathier College might show up, or any of the Gebite schools, or if not, I don't know, pick some others of the ones that might get smaller entries and tell the people of them.
Yeah. There's no Blathier College references in here. The guns and gears representation is mostly on the gears side with Lepidstadt. There is actually a Gebite school, Synostosis Academy.
That incredible name, no notes.
Yeah, the lovely vampiric guest who is very interested in why the people of Sarkoris are not using their tremendous natural resources of dead demons to build fortifications. Looks clearly, this is what needs to happen. But so there are those, and there are also there's a lot of I'm Alex. I'm sure you would recognize Dasslane Academy.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm so glad they're in there.
Yeah, Jay Dasslane gets to introduce some of the kiddos that they've brought along, but also a lot of Indraraka Institute, which you some folks might remember from some extremely cute art in the Tianzi, I believe it was a World Guide. But yeah, we've got, Academy, and the Arcanumerium, but also there ends up being about 12 additional schools. I'm not sure if I should just read them all. That seems a little weird, but
save some surprises for the people.
Yeah, I think probably my favorite, just for like pure being the correct energy, is the Halls of Revelation, which is a school from Iblados, run by an ancient Cyclops, lots of Centaur and Minotaur students, who were not invited at all. They just, consulted the oracles and found out that they were supposed to go there, and so they just showed up and have taken occupancy of the astronomy building while everyone's running this convocation.
Love that energy.
Yeah.
The fates told me I was meant to be at this meeting. That's great. Thank you so much. Maryssa, you go ahead.
All right. I highlighted this one the second I saw it. I think this is the most important question we are going to ask tonight. Logan, we had originally been talking about romancing NPCs, and then somebody asked the most important question. Does romancing the NPCs extend to romancing troops?
Oh, wow.
Polyamory representation is real.
That is a special question. We added polyamory representation to Heartbond when we were remastering it, Alex. So, I think this kind of falls in that category of, some folks look at the rules and they say, like, nothing in the rulebook says a dog can't play basketball. So if you do want to romance a whole troop, you can. But I do suggest, if you're doing that in your game, if you're trying to get, tokens to earn the affection, you need to multiply it by the number of people in the troop, or you're just gonna cause more stress. So, you know what? Let's say that's a rare option that the GM can incorporate if they want to.
Seems extremely reasonable.
There's an extra add-on question, but I will just hand this back to Alex.
You can ask the add-on question unless it needs to happen off camera. All right, let's see. I have a good one for Bill, actually, who we were just talking to about Closet the Tyrant. Hi, welcome back to the show. Someone in chat asked if any of the events from the Bloodlords adventure path had an impact into the decisions about having Seldig in this adventure, any sort of the possible outcomes that might have come through. Was that something that you looked at as you were crafting this particular adventure?
Mm-hmm. So in Bloodlords, Seldig plays a big part in Bloodlords, but he is sort of on the rocks with Geb after losing Erasni. And so there is a good possibility in Bloodlords that the PCs end up killing Seldig, but Closet the Tyrant assumes that that does not happen, that Seldig manages to escape somehow. He's very clever, he's cunning. And so he decides, well, I've been the spy master here in Geb, but I've lost favor in this nation, and it is best if I find a different patron. So he travels to the Gravelands and pledges his services to tar-baphon. But in typical Seldig fashion, he is playing a couple games at once. He has pledged his services to the Whispering Tyrant, but he also has this plan to change Erasni's fate.
Just gonna keep switching sides until he finds one that works for him, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
I love that.
Ultimately, he's looking after himself.
It's like Benny from The Mummy, where he just pulls out all of the chains.
Yes, that is exactly right.
I'm just going to assume he's just going to keep popping up as a villain in different adventures and or becomes a thaumaturge, because either one makes sense.
All right. So I'm going to bump this one back to Landon to talk more about Rival Academies. We went really into the Rune Lords being there at the Revocation. Revocation? I just made
Convocation.
a word. Convocation.
Revocation is also a word.
But people, a lot of people in the audience are asking, it's like, are the Rune Lords now just wizard schools? Is that how we phrased it?
So the exact structure that it's close enough to the book being released that I'm happy to go into. They are still a class archetype, just not something that we use a lot of. So if folks aren't familiar with that, it's reasonable enough. But basically, you choose to be a Rune Lord first level, and it does mean that you have to take the Rune Lord dedication as your second level class feat. But it modifies a bunch of stuff about the class. One of those is you get a special school that is a little more complicated than normal. You get basic Thessalonian magic, which will give you stuff, a lot of divination, which was shared by all of them, even in the before times, but also stuff like mystic armor and like sigil, like stuff that you either need as a wizard or just you need as a rune lord. Like you can do this. Like what are you even doing? And then you'll also choose your sin, and that will add a whole extra layer of additional spells to your curriculum, and choose your school spell, your initial focus spell. And then the other thing that does modify is your what would be your thesis, and that will be replaced with a very special bond with your polearm. So you will have basically be able to use that as a very flexible and powerful staff, and then additionally be able to fuse it with other staffs to even make it even more flexible and more powerful. And that so that's the basic chassis, and then it is still an archetype. You do still have some feats that you can go into, do cool more stuff. But yeah, that's the structure of the whole thing.
A properly powerful archwizard should have a properly powerful archwizard staff, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the Rune Lord is really going for, like, you're obviously starting at first level, but by the time you're, pushing into the upper levels, like, you should feel like you're the villain in the tower at the end of this story, right? Like, you're the 20th level wizard that's there being like, yes, I've clearly outthought all of your plans up to this point and will now, stop time and petrify all of you.
Excellent. Speaking of ultra powerful archmages, Logan, hi, welcome back to the show.
That's me.
That's you. We talked a lot about NPC Core kind of having different these sort of generic like town guards, things like that. All these kind of different generic stat blocks. Does NPC Core have like stat blocks for unique villains, for rune lords, for things like that, or is it all just kind of this generic mix and match, plug and play stuff for GMs?
It's entirely generic because it is meant to be a GM tool. So for those sorts of things, that's more like look at Lost Omens Legends, look at Monsters of Myth. A lot of the books in the Lost Omens line are more in that category, and obviously, adventures that feature those characters heavily. For the rulebook line, we like to mostly keep it a little more generic, just to make it, kind of more broadly applicable for our kind of role in the game line. So. Yeah, there are definitely some who you could grab and use as those NPCs, but there aren't that many that are like a specific person.
Sweet. I'm actually going to throw it back to you, Logan, with another NPC Core question. And this one is about, will the NPC Core have any guidelines on scaling NPCs or troops from level 1 to level 20?
We do have some suggestions on advancing your NPCs. That's kind of in with the relationships section. We also have one on NPC advancement and kind of like for your recurring villains and recurring allies, if you want to kind of level them up over time. It's not like here is what to do at each level sort of thing, because it refers back to the GM core information on leveling up or creating creatures at different levels, and kind of helps guide you through that process if you're taking an existing NPC and leveling them up. It has some really strong advice on that, and kind of like both the numbers and then also some special like, oh, now it feels like they should have a new ability, some advice on that.
Excellent. I will relieve you of duty, Logan, and I'll go back to Landon for a second with a question that someone asked in chat, which I think is good, and which I also want to know for my Strength of Thousands group, so this is a selfish question. Lost Omens Rival Academies, you said one of the schools that shows up is the Magambia Academy. I'm sure there's great options for them in there. Don't care about that. Most importantly, are there spoilers in this book for Strength of Thousands, or I guess for any other school-based AP or adventures? Is that something that folks need to worry about, or if they're like in the middle of Strength of Thousands, they can go in and not worry?
Yeah. So specifically with Strength of Thousands, there's a little bit of a sidebar actually discussing this might change if you've run Strength of Thousands, maybe, how you might want to include it. But there's nothing talking about, nothing that assumes any of that has happened. There will be the big thing that gets spoiled is, I think, something that everyone's probably fine with, but just as a fair warning, is Wrath of the Righteous does get very spoiled throughout. But the only other things that come up are there's some very slight spoilers to some of the Dasylane Academy, Pathfinder Society scenarios and things like that, where it's questions about the prank wars and things. But it should be. You should really be able to drop it in Strength of Thousands game, either if you're starting out a Strength of Thousands game, or after a Strength of Thousands game, to sort of integrate in the heroics of your PCs.
So everyone, you heard Landon. Go play the Dasylane Academy scenarios for Pathfinder Society before this book comes out. You've got a month. Go do it.
Well, see, what I heard is we need to expand the prank war, so it's between every single academy listed into the rival academies.
There we go.
Considering how the last prank wars went, that could be dangerous, but also delightful, and we should do it.
Can the demons join also from the Sarkoriskar? I think.
Little demons with little pies. How could we say no?
What's in those pies? I don't think it's cream filling.
Well, it's not in the scenarios. So.
I have a feeling it might be sulfur or explosives, or I'm gonna side eye the demons being a part of it.
My oracle got a face full of nails last time they got caught in one of those scenarios, so they're traumatized.
Ooh, all right, Alex, I will take this into consideration before I suggest it to the editing team that we continue the prank wars.
We should do it.
All right. So I'm gonna start throwing it around and throw one to Bill Fischer. Where can we find you on socials, Bill?
I am a social media hermit, so you cannot find me on social media anywhere. But if you have questions about Claus the Tyrant, you can come onto the boards at paizo.com, and I will answer them.
Maybe if he feels like gracing us with his presence.
Yeah.
All right, then I'm going to pass it back up to Logan. Where can we find... Are you on socials, please?
I am occasionally, mostly on Blue Sky, Logan Bonner. The generic one, whatever it is the easiest place to find me.
Nice. And Landon, where can we find you?
Pretty much the same. I'm also on Blue Sky, and it's just Landon Winkler. Blue Sky. Whatever.
I do want to note I will not answer your rules questions on Blue Sky.
Go to the forums, and then Logan and Bill will tell you what they deem to tell you.
Yes, precisely.
All right. I personally can be found on all of the socials at Maryssa Marie. And Alex, where can we find you?
You can find me on the socials under my name. We're all just hanging out under our real Christian government names, Alex Feidel. At some point, I'll set it up with my actual website. Yeah, that's where you can find all of us. And I'm sure you can find all of us at PaizoCon Online, which is coming up in just a few short months. This is my plug. At the end of May, of course, PaizoCon Online. We'll be having panels to talk about all of these and more, AMA channels, the whole 9 yards. So don't forget to join us there. Have more information about that on the blog very soon. But I think at this point, we're just about out of time, so we will sign off. We will wave goodbye to the people, say thank you all so much for joining us this month. We'll be back, I believe, next month, first Friday of the month, same bat time, same bat channel. Maryssa, anything I forgot to say to the people before we wave goodbye and sign off?
let me check this wonderfully written script that they wrote for us that you and I constantly go off of.
Yeah, absolutely. We just completely ignore Rue's wonderfully written script. Also, everyone in chat, please thank Maya for doing an incredible job on the text for the show this week. They did great, and it was their first time doing it. So please tell them they did a wonderful job. They deserve compliments.
All right, and until then, you can get all of the Paizo updates by checking on our blog or joining our newsletter at paizo.com/news. I think that's it. Do we want to call it, y'all?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much. Let us wave goodbye to the people and sign off. Thank you so much.
Good night, all.
Bye.